I was, in fact, invited on Scott Walker's RV. He was racing between campaign stops in Iowa. And while we were there, I asked him about his comment that he would tear up the Iran nuclear deal on day one of his presidency and whether that's realistic.
Would you be willing to go ahead and do away with this deal, increase sanctions, even if all of the other allies around the world really were opposed to that?
Yes, and I think it's that bad of a deal. It's a bad deal for us. It's a bad deal for Israel. It's a bad deal for the region. It's not just the starting gun. It will accelerate the nuclear arms race, and it is empowering Iran to do what they're going to do by lifting the sanctions, giving them credibility in the world. Not only emboldens the problems that we have in terms of their illicit nuclear infrastructure, but this is the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
But the U.S. can't lead in a vacuum, right?
No, and we certainly would not want to. Our intention would not be to do it alone. I would seek to get the support of Congress, not just to reinstate the existing sanctions, but put in place more crippling ones, and to get others. I think if America was to lead and make the case as to why these sanctions are needed and why we need to petition in that regard, I think we could get most of it.
The reason the sanctions were so beneficial and so effective is because the whole world joined in on them.
Exactly.
If the U.S. was going it alone with sanctions, Iran would say, all right, U.S., whatever, we can, still trade with everybody else. So it wouldn't really work, would it?
Well, I mean, there's still fundamental parts related to the United States. And again, the United States putting sanctions would have an impact on others. So they'd have to consider what impact it would have on relations that they do with Iran and what that would impact have on their own economy.
Earlier this week, you said that the Boy Scouts of America should keep its ban on gay leaders because the policy protected children and advanced Scout values. And then your campaign clarified to say that it was really protecting the Scouts from the political and media discussion about that. I'm having trouble understanding that. What at the end of the day, what is your position?
I'm not talking about personal protection. I'm talking about, for me, the reason why I didn't have a problem with it is I just think it pulls scouting into a whole larger political and cultural debate as opposed to just saying scouting is about camping and citizenship and merit badges and service awards instead of pulling all these other issues out there. And I would just hope that they could stay focused on that's all.
So, but should there be a ban on allowing gay men to be Scout leaders?
That's up to the people who run the Boy Scouts. One thing that people find unique, I guess, whether you like it or not, is I actually answer questions. People ask me a question, I'll answer a question.
But you're not really answering this one.
Sure, I said in this case, that's what I thought. I thought the policy was just fine.
Okay.
I'm saying when I was in Scouts, it was fine. But you're asking what should the policy be going forward? It should be left up to the leaders of the Scouts.
Do you think that being gay is a choice?
Oh, I mean, I think that's not even an issue for me to be involved in. The bottom line is I'm going to stand up and work hard for every American, regardless of who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what their background. I'm going to fight for people, and no matter whether they vote for me or not.
To act on behalf of people is to do that properly. You have to understand, or at least have an opinion on who they are and where they're coming from.
But again, I think in the end you don't. No, I don't have an opinion on every single issue out there. I mean, to me, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. So I'm saying that from an opinion standpoint, I don't know what the answer to that is. And again, I'm going to spend my time focused on things that I do know and what I can work on.
You have taken an interesting position in that you say that legal immigration should be limited. Why is that? And is that, some people might look at that and say that's completely counter to what America was founded on.
What I've specifically said is I think priority under legal immigration should be given to the impact on American working families, on their wages in a way that will improve the American economy. That not only means people like me who were born here, that means people like the woman I just met in Cedar Rapids, for example, who moved here many years ago, was a political refugee of the Congo, and who went through the process to be a legal citizen. She's working here, and I believe for her and for others who were born here, there needs to be a priority given to say we're going to do things that make sure we put priority on American working families and their wages. Doesn't mean there won't ever be legal immigration. It just says that's where our priority should be.
You once backed a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, and then you say now that you changed your mind and you believe it's amnesty. You are running as somebody who's principled and authentic. How do you square changing your positions, or at least the impression that your positions have changed with that? Let me just read you one quick thing. Craig Robinson, who's the former director of the party here in Iowa, the Republican Party, said Walker is making Romney look like the model of consistency.
The only issue where I've clearly said I had a position before, and even on that, as a governor, I didn't have a role to play in immigration. I said there should be a path years ago when I talked about going forward with legal immigration. I didn't talk about amnesty. In fact, I said in that specific interview, I opposed the Gang of Five, the measure that Marco Rubio and others proposed. So I explicitly, even then, said, I'm not supporting that. But I said flat out in the interview, or at the beginning of the year, that's a position I have changed on. By listening to people, I made it very clear what my position on immigration is.